guys, your girl Karina here, and happy blessed Wednesday. So today is a wonderful day because it's a blessing in itself, and it's for us to take the opportunity for greatness, for Christ and God's glory. And I know that I say that with such boldness, but it's true, because when you really feel Christ working within your heart, you just want to share it and you want to inspire others to do the same. And essentially, it's in this challenging world, this challenging secular world, I have to say, the more reason we have to make our hearts stronger and to not become lukewarm in our faith. And it's very easy for us to succumb to the depression of this world and to fall into that feeling of despair, because it's just like, where's God in all of this? And you know, the enemy loves those thoughts. The enemy loves those thoughts. And that's why it's for us to be like, be God, get out of my face. I got our Blessed Mother Mary with me. I got God, I got Jesus Christ. So leave me alone. Just leave me alone and be gone forever. And really, it's tough for each and every one of us, especially we're all, you know, some of us are going back to work, and then some of us are still working, frontline workers or whatnot. And it's very, you know, it's very susceptible for us to feel like, when is this going to be over? When this pandemic's going to be over? When the social distancing will be over? Because yes, indeed, like there are events that I've seen invites to, and they're out, you know, it's like a social distancing kind of thing, and I'm just like, oh, crash and burn. Like, yeah, it's just, it does, like the whole pandemic itself does take the mood off somehow. But, you know, we should take that as an opportunity to really, you know, express ourselves the way we are, even though we're at a, you know, a distance like 2 meters apart, you know. So, you know, talk louder, talk with more enthusiasm, or talk with, smile more, simply as that, and be open more to conversations, you know. You don't have to feel like, oh, I can't hug you, bye, you know. No, just embrace goodness and grace out of it, you know. You don't need to think that, yes, this pandemic's diminishing our social capabilities here and there, but that doesn't mean for us to really feel sad about it. No. So when you really have your heart set towards Christ, you see everything with a different perspective, and you see everything with such light and possibilities and greatness and such awesomeness to come, right? So that's what I wanted to share with you guys, just a little bit as my intro. But with that in mind, I know it's been like 3 minutes already. Wow, what's wrong with me today? See, this is what happens when you're just so excited to film, because like, I know I didn't do a talk video yesterday, but I just really wanted to get myself centered to just have all my ideas right down core to spill with you guys, and to just put it out there so you guys can do the same. Just spread it out there, you know, the message of Christ, the truth of Christ, and the inspiration of Christ, and so that we as true warriors of Christ will not fail, because we got our Blessed Mother Mary really leading the pack and really leading the true warriors of Christ out there. So that's why we should not be afraid, and that is why we should stay strong together in prayer. You know, we should, and really make it a real effort to constantly do these, like, do online prayer groups. They're so wonderful. I'm doing 2 of them right now. Like, I personally love the Sunday one more because it's the rosary. It's the rosary for our Blessed Mother Mary. So with that in mind, it really gives me that booster of awesomeness to embrace what's to come in the following week. So, you know, really allow yourself to be pumped up with wonderful prayers and wonderful energy to embrace what this world has against you, right? Because being a true warrior for Christ means you're going against the world, you know, for Christ, with truthfulness and full sincerity, and with the power of God. So with that said, my prayers will continue to go out to your family, as I said, and stay strong. And as I was going to say before all my videos, let's get started. I'm actually excited to talk about this, which, if you have not checked the title below, which is knowing your spiritual warfare with the enemy. Yeah, it's some hardcore. I know I was supposed to do part 2 last Friday, But I felt the power hand of God be like, Karina, no, not today. Not today. I was like, okay, God. So I just spent time in church and allowed myself to just spend quiet time, as I always love to do on my Fridays at St. Michael's Cathedral in downtown Toronto. It's such a beautiful cathedral. If you're in Toronto, you haven't checked it out, check it out. Downtown, literally, it's right in the hardcore heart of the city. So, just a side note. So anyways, back to the topic. Spiritual warfare with the enemy. Yeah. It's something that we all have to take seriously, as I said in my part 1 of this video. And it's very easy for us to become frail to it because of all the temptations or the weaknesses. And that's why it's that sense of pride that we need to acknowledge to really eradicate from our hearts, really, because it's through a blessed Mother Mary that allows us to have that humility and to grow in virtue from there. And that is the best way to combat the enemy's ways. And I just want to talk about 2 different activities, how the enemy works in our lives constantly. So there's the first one, which is ordinary activities. Is how the enemy works as his common strategies from day-to-day basis. And it's very subtle, but it's very effective. And that's one thing I go through as well too, and I'm pretty sure you do too, in one way or another. But the only difference is that we have to acknowledge it and we have to recognize it, because if you don't know what it is, then the more reason you're going to fall into that temptation more often. So that's why it's very important that when it comes to fighting off the enemy, you have to know what your weak points are. You have to know what triggers you. You have to know what temptations have been repeating often in the past as a pattern. And I've said this before in my previous videos, but it's very important to know that when it comes to the enemy, though, he does not read your mind. He does not read your mind. He cannot read your mind. No. But he'll pretend that he can, because he will literally put you in situations that will allow you to recreate your old mistakes from the past. And so that's why when you really look into yourself, allow yourself to go head on with your own problems, what makes you weak, what tempts you, what triggers you, what makes you mad, your temper, everything, so that when you go through these different battles here and there, you know what to do right away, right? And you know, and you can recognize right away that is a spiritual attack from the enemy himself, right? Because always remember that when you're allowing yourself to become closer to Christ, the more the enemy will try to make you quit, right? And so that's why it's with that sense of pride that is so easy for us to fall into, because in this world, in this demanding world, right, with expectations, we always have to maintain this, the status, this level and whatnot. And in order for us to become closer to Christ, we have to humble ourselves, right? If it's at the cost of humiliation for Christ, it is well worth it, So that's why with the ordinary activities, it's the enemy planting ideas within our minds to seek that influence of our reasoning, of our memory, and especially our will. It's the ordinary ones. It's not the extraordinary ones, which I'll talk about just for a minute, but it's the ordinary ones, which is very common to each and every one of us. And it often stand in the heart of the temptation he presents. It's that lie, and the enemy deceiving you that it's so nice, just like that fruit, the forbidden fruit that clearly the serpent was able to tempt Eve with so easily, just like that, because it's just that seed of doubt, right? It's that lie and that seed of doubt making Eve think that, you don't need to know that. You can eat the fruit. Nothing will happen to you. It's just all those it make you question yourself, right? So that's just one. In your activities, there's 4 different ways that the enemy will get you and attack you, which is the accusation, doubt, as I mentioned before, enticement, and provocation. those 4 aspects, which are normally the ordinary activities, just the ordinary activities of how you really go through that spiritual warfare with the enemy. And when it comes to the accusation that the enemy tempts you with, it's just that pressure. It's just pressuring you to do this and pressuring you to do that, tempt you to do this. And a lot of times it tends to happen, especially in high school as well, because that peer pressure, and you're in that time of development, and you're in that time of growing and discovering yourself, right? So I know it's not just high school kids or elementary, but it's often adults too, and young adults as well, and it's that feeling of oh, I gotta blend in. If this person's doing it, I have to do it too, so I can blend in with it. No, so to combat that, of course, a blessed Mother Mary, through her graces, awesome graces, it's really knowing and embedding in your heart that being a true warrior for Christ is being different, and being different from the world, and being able to just put up with these, how should I say it, the ways of knowing that you can really be someone better. If you know it's wrong, don't do it, and don't allow yourself to be in that, what's that word, in that time of just being tempted to sin. There's a saying for that. It's just not in my mind right now. Basically what it is, that to not allow yourself to be in that situation that will tempt you to sin. Yeah, it's very easy. So when you recognize it right away, allow yourself to be prudent in that moment. So you're being prudent for Christ, because really being prudent for Christ is one of the amazing things to do, but one of the hardest things to do. Not gonna lie. So that's one thing, accusation. The second way the devil tempts us is through doubt, as he seeks to diminish our faith. So with that in mind, he insinuates into our thoughts various doubts about God and his will for us. That's one thing that all of us tend to go through every single day, because basically the enemy just wants to plant the seed of doubt and to make you doubt what God wants for you. And that doubt of the greatness and the goodness and the graces that God has for you. Because he will make you think, oh, well, you want this in your life, but then how come it's not happening now? Or why do you have to wait so long? Why can't you just move, just do what you want? Yeah, that's how the enemy works. He likes to rattle our minds and our hearts so much, because he's just that evil, he's just that mean. But with that in mind, allow yourself to use those opportunities to strengthen your trust even more, and to not allow yourself to become more frail, and to not allow yourself to fall into the hands of the enemy, which is so easy for us to do. And that's exactly what the enemy wants us to do, to fall into his hands just like that. And the fact that he can see you doing great things for Christ, young adult ministry, youth ministry, any ministry within the church, the more reason you're literally waving, what's that with the bull? Yeah, that red cloth or thing. I don't know what that's called, but yeah, it's literally calling upon the enemy, just be I'm right here, but you can't touch me. Nope, you can't attack me, because I've got my faith, I got my trust, I got my mind and heart set on Christ. That's how it is. So that's the second one, with doubt, because just those thoughts, that seed of doubt, and all he has to do is just plant it there, and then it will just rattle you up, causing you to have restless nights, making you overthink, and then making you worry at night, and not make you sleep at night. Yeah. Well, at least I've gone through that too in my past life too. But I'm just warning you that with, when it comes to really following the way of Christ, recognize it. Recognize that as just one of the aspects of the spiritual warfare with the enemy. So number 3 is enticement. That's how the demon and the enemy tends to tempt us, is through enticement. It's to bring to the attention the things that we find attractive, and then suggest that we attain what attracts us through illicit means. So it's basically having the wrong motive, the wrong intentions, right? But you won't find that out until you fall into that enticement of how the enemy tempts us, right? It will literally present itself as such a harmless little thing. It's okay, it's fine, just do it anyway. But then once you fall into that because of that enticement, you will literally see how empty it will make you feel and make you feel so filthy in the eyes of Christ, you know? And that's how the enemy works. He wants us to feel that way. He'll make it look all shiny and glorious. But then once you fall into that, it's just lies. It's just a ditch of dirt, a ditch of garbage, literally. And it's easy for us to fall into that as well because we just think it's harmless and we think it's okay. But then once you fall into that, it's what happens after is what the enemy wants you to go through. And then it'll make you doubt, and then it'll make you feel despair. It'll make you feel sad. It'll make you feel lonely. It'll make you feel empty. That's how it is. And that's why we need to be able to recognize, as I said, the things that entice us that look so harmless. And we need to be able to tell ourselves, no, this is how the enemy is attacking me today. No, not today. And so we need to, again, be prudent in that moment very much because it allows us to know deep in our heart that, you know, when you're being attacked, that means you're doing something right for Christ. I know I said this in my last talk, but it's very true. The more you get attacked, physically, mentally, spiritually, that's when you know for sure that you are doing something right for Christ. And especially me, I can definitely attest. In this YouTube channel, I am. It's not easy. It's not easy, but like I feel it physically before I even want to film, and I literally push myself. You know, and so if I can do it, so should you. You know, if you feel exhausted from work and you have to do a young adult event or something like that, and you just feel really exhausted, push yourself, but not becoming burned out though. That's different. But push yourself for Christ and trusting in Christ that the Holy Spirit will provide you energy to do your duty and your mission for Christ, for his kingdom and for his name and for his glory. You know, so that's the third one, enticement. Sorry. So the fourth one is provocation. That's how the demon tempts us as well, through provocation. And it's basically planting thoughts or arranging circumstances that will make it more likely that we'll be stirred to pride or anger or lust or despair. So it ties into what I was saying earlier about how the enemy can't read your mind, but the enemy can pretend he can through recreating different circumstances here and there for you to become angered, fall into the sin of lust, fall into despair, fall into the sin of pride, everything. Because it's just basically recreating those old mistakes that you had in the past. So when you know all the mistakes that you've done in the past and you've recognized that, and when you see it starting to repeat, that's when you know the enemy is just really putting you in that state to sin. Yeah. Because really, the enemy doesn't want you to become better. He wants you to become worse and worse, and then fall into the secular world and fall into the empty happiness of this world. So you are way off from where you're supposed to be. And that's how it is. Like, it's very easy for us in this world because of what's happening, temptations, materialism. Yeah, it's serious business. This is not something that we have to take lightly. It's something that we have to take fervently. Really, those are just the ordinary activities alone. And just those four aspects. Yeah, I know it's a little lot to take in, but it's very true that I want you guys to know this because I can already feel that I'm going to get attacked the way it is. because the fact that I'm sharing this information, you guys, is definitely something the enemy doesn't want me to do. Because really, the fact that there are times that I feel restless and there's times that I feel exhausted before I even film, though I know, and I recognize those are definitely signs, but I fight them. I fight them, and I don't want it to affect what I'm doing, because what I'm doing right now is something that I strongly feel is necessary during this time, especially. And so that's why when you take it upon yourself, don't be scared. Don't be afraid of the enemy's attacks. Only use that as an inspiration for you, because again, as I said, it's a way for you to know that you're doing something right. Just thinking in that context, and you won't be fearful at all. You won't be afraid, because even Jesus Christ himself said, do not be afraid, for I'm with you. It's just so beautiful like that, because it allows us and assures us that what we're doing, as long as it's all for Christ and for God's glory and name and kingdom, we will be okay. These spiritual battles will only strengthen our faith and trust and love for God even more, because you fight it off. And the more you fight it off like a true warrior for Christ, it takes you one step closer. So really, that's why with Satan himself and the enemy himself, he doesn't force you to sin. That's one thing to remember. He doesn't force you to sin. He entices you, he accuses you, he puts you in situations to make you sin. He just likes to tease. That's how he is. I don't like him for doing that. I don't. And so should you. But that's how he works. That's how he wants us to become a part of his army. Right? And so you combat that by becoming a true warrior for Christ, being a part of our Blessed Mother Mary's army. Right? So really, the enemy just simply uses powers to tempt us as human beings to sin. Tempt and tease. That's it. And really, it provides us an occasion to even sin, to make it more difficult to resist. Yeah. The harder he tries, the harder you push yourself to be prudent and to be fervent in prayer and to be fervent in your faith. Really, I want you guys to truly remember that very much. And when it comes to temptations, not all of the temptations come directly from Satan and his minions. They don't all come from them. They also arise simply from our own weakness and the habits of sin that we developed in the past. That's one thing that I want to share with you guys very much, that it's not all the temptations that come from Satan himself and his minions. It's simply from our own weaknesses and the habits of sin that we have developed in the past. So that's why it goes back to what I said earlier. Go head on with your weaknesses and your temptations that you've gone through in the past, so that you won't do them again. And that the enemy cannot ever use it against you ever again. Because the enemy is quick. The enemy is quick to make use of these temptations and weaknesses, to come either directly from our friends and family or from other sources. God knows what that is. There's the internet, social media. It's there. So that is only just for the ordinary activity of the enemy himself. So when it comes to extraordinary activity, that is where it gets real. I don't know how it's real to get. And there's 4 different types, which is infestation, oppression, obsession, and possession. Those 4 aspects. And it's very destructive. Very destructive. It's more powerful, and it manifests itself within our hearts and our thoughts in the physical realm. It's hardcore. That's why we need to constantly run to Christ, run to God, run to our Blessed Mary, whatever we can, whenever, all the time. Don't forget. For the extraordinary demonic activity, yes. Infestation, oppression, obsession, possession. First one, infestation. It's very, very subtle, which is connected to a particular object or location. I'm pretty sure you've heard of like paranormal activity. Yes, this extraordinary part is very linked to that, because we have to know, we can't be ignorant. We can't be ignorant true words of Christ. When you know, you won't be ignorant, and you will recognize it. You will know right away. You will go against it by going to our bosom of the Mary, Christ, and God right away. So, infestation, yes, demonic activity that's connected to a particular object or location, and it's there. So there are places around the world that are haunted. There are. I don't need to list them. You can do that on Google. There's a lot. I really don't even want to go into that. Actually, true story, but true story, I've actually been to a couple, which I had no idea that they had something in there, some spiritual realm going on there. I don't want to go into that because it's just a little much, but it was just my first time and it was very unexpected. Hearing footsteps, yeah, I've gone through that. I heard that. It was actually at someone's house, and it was a few years ago when I was like a teenager, and definitely for sure it was real. Like, it was real. I literally heard footsteps knocking and everyone was asleep. So that's what happens. Like, it was at an aunt's house, and it was not pleasant. I couldn't sleep. It wasn't the greatest feeling in the world. 2 nights in a row. Yeah. So infestation. So location. I don't want to ever go through that again. Anyways, so second is oppression. It's the attack on the victim's exterior life. So it can be the influence of bodily health, finances, work situation, family or social relations. That's the oppression. So basically it will attack the person's life in every single angle and vantage point that you can think of, and so that's what we have to recognize is, so whenever you go through any trials and tribulations, know right away to fight it more by running to God, running to Christ, and running to our Blessed Mother Mary. There's a lot of ways of how the enemy loves to attack us through our life and through the circumstances of our life, and therefore it links to one thing to another, which is, that seed of doubt. Like, why is God not with me? I've been praying. Why is God not here? It's all the why, how, and all the questioning, basically. Right? So with that in mind, you allow yourself to know that when you go through these trials and tribulations with your life, God's permitting them. God is permitting them because he still loves you. He still loves you, and he knows that you can fight it. And always remember that God does not give you what you cannot handle. It's a true fact. So whenever you go through anything in your life, God will always be with you, and God knows you can do it. And God knows that you are capable, mentally, spiritually, and in your heart and physically, to go through that situation, no matter what it is. Family, friends, finances, family, other situations. Right? So it leads to the third one, which is oppression, which is the form of the struggle in the victim's interior life. So oppression is more on the outside, on the exterior life, which is what you can see. The finances, work situations, family, social relations, and bodily health, all that. But oppression is more on the interior side, which it makes you just wrestle and become disturbed in your thoughts, planted by the enemy. Yeah, obsession. That's how it is. If not only the exterior, he's just gotta pick on the interior. Can you just leave us alone once for But that's how it is. God's permitting for this to happen in this world because he knows we can do it. He knows, and he loves us so much, and he gives us that free will to choose. It's that free will of love that God has given us for us to choose. So the fourth one is possession. This is probably what you might already know already, which is like exorcism and whatnot. And it's the periodic episodes in which controls the body of a victim through though the victim, it's him or herself, is usually not aware of what is taking place. Periodic episodes, where you'll just feel this anger, or you'll feel sad all of a sudden, or this feeling of like you're not yourself. You're not your 100% self, and you just feel like you're someone different, you know? And, well, obviously the extreme one is like demonic possession, which is something really scary. I don't even want to go into that or don't even want to see that, but that's what it is, you know? And possession can be also in our day-to-day life as well. Like, as I said earlier, just feeling not yourself. You just feel down. You just feel restless. You feel tired. You feel physically exhausted all of a sudden, right? So I can definitely attest to that. You know, I'll feel all bubbly, jolly, and, you know, woohoo. But then all of a sudden, I'll just feel like, what? Like, why do I feel tired all of a sudden? And then you try everything to just combat that, and it won't work, except when you pray a simple Hail Mary to our Blessed Mother Mary 3 times, Glory be, Our Father, Divine Mercy Chaplet, and that feeling will go away. Yeah. So really with possession though, it's one thing that we have to recognize very much. You know, road rage, especially when you're driving or when you're parking. It's there. It happens, right? And if you know that's one of your habits, combat that by just being prudent and just letting it go. Let God take care of it. You know, and essentially, God's always watching. God can see the goodness that you're doing just little by little. He can see the progression and that transformation that you're going through. Exteriorly and interiorly. So when you try for Christ and for God, you will really accomplish so much, you know? So just start, try. I always like to put it out there as a form of inspiration to always try. When you feel this little spark of inspiration to do something, try. I literally just saw one of my sisters in Christ like writing songs for Christ. I'm so proud of her, like literally, you know? At least she's trying. And really, that's the main thing that we have to keep on doing, especially with the spiritual warfare of the enemy. We have to try. We cannot allow the enemy to think that he won. Because bottom line is, the enemy knows he's going to lose. So the least thing he can do right now is to gather as much corrupted souls down to the pits of hell with him. That's it. And so that's why the biggest weapon you have is our Blessed Mother Mary. Yeah. So don't allow yourself to be ignorant. Don't deny in finding out about your faith about Christ. Don't avoid it. Don't think like, oh, it's too much to handle. I don't want to deal with this stuff. Literally, come and see what greatness is to come through the power and grace of God. And you can do it, really. Like, that's the only thing that we have to keep on doing, is to keep on trying and striving for Christ. And it's something that may seem overwhelming at first, but when you have Christ and you have God and you have our Blessed Mother Mary by your side, you have nothing to fear. The enemy will just try to tease you here one way or another, but when you tell him off with our Blessed Mother Mary, he will come again another day. He may be gone, but he'll come again another day. That's how it is. That's how it is with the spiritual warfare. It's come and go, and he'll keep on trying until you fail for good. So there you have it. I know it's a lot to take in. I didn't want to go too much in it, but I want to save it for another video. But please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please ring the bell notification to notify you for any more videos coming out. And my prayers will be with you always, for you and your family to stay safe. And as I always say in all my videos, don't be afraid to be true warriors of Christ.